Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time. This time on the Kindness Project, being Rudely Awoken, reviews, and part 2 of our interview with Chris Haycock.
Welcome to the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a man who thinks an effective method of waking someone up is a torch.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Oh, you've got a little notepad and you're just ticking them off as we're doing the introductions. I like that. I'll tell you why Charlotte thinks an effective.
Are you thinking an effective method?
And I'm with a girl whose idea of rebellion is doing household chores, but just doing them very, very, very slowly. It's Charlotte Ames. How you doing, Charlotte?
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. You were rude the other day, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I just wasn't in it.
I got a bit worried about you because I literally started tapping you and started saying your name when I went in your bedroom. I'm surprised I found you in that bedroom, to be honest. Under all the junk. But then when you wouldn't answer, I thought I'd shine a torch. Because I'm genuinely, I was worried about you. I thought, are you alright?
Yeah, we'd both fallen asleep downstairs, and I woke up because I was uncomfortable sleeping on the sofa, and I saw you just laying there like you were falling.
I love a sofa.
And I was just like, right, I can't sleep here. I'm gonna go upstairs.
Yeah.
And I slept for like 4 hours.
Amazing. But when I woke you up, I tried like saying your name.
Gentle persuasion.
I gave you a gentle tap. And then I did the torch, and you went, oh my God, I've got to get up. But Charlotte, you've got a burger and chips downstairs. You went, burger and chips? And literally turned from this comatose zombie to the most active person in the world.
See, that's my two moods.
Yeah.
Comatose zombie, active person. And depending on what's going on, I will change. Like, the comatose zombie is between lessons or right at the end of the lessons and right at the start. And when I'm sleeping, because... And then the active... Right, I've got to do all this. Food. Friends. Information. That's it.
Where's education coming?
Information.
Information. Where's this podcast coming?
Friends.
Friends?
You guys are all my friends.
I'll be there for you.
Oh, you... that was terrible singing on both our parts. We should never sing again.
And we won't.
Well...
So the next part we always do when we introduce the podcast is we normally talk about where people can get in touch with us. However, what I'd like to do for this particular podcast is ask our listeners a favour. So I'd like to ask for some reviews. So if you'd like to either go on our Facebook group, jump on iTunes, if you're enjoying the Kindness Project, please feel free to say something nice, give us a 5-star review, and just
what do they do if they hate our guts?
Absolutely nothing. Stop listening. We don't want you as a listener, all right? You're getting on my nerves now.
Don't criticise people trying to spread some good.
Yeah, we're trying to do a good thing here, and all you can do is
criticise. I feel a little offended.
We haven't actually had any criticism, so there might be anybody this applies to, but I don't know. Anyway, where can people, apart from leaving awesome reviews and giving us 5-star ratings on iTunes,
or criticising us,
or criticising us, where can they get in touch with us?
Well, Twitter @HonorKindness. Why are you laughing at me? No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Tell me that.
Facebook, you just go in and you just search Honor Kindness.
Honor Kindness Project, you can do that.
You can do either of them.
Yeah.
It's both equally effective, but Honor Kindness is less letters, so you know.
Yeah. And you can email us at holla
at thekindnessproject.co.uk and the website www.thekindnessproject.co.uk.
And this week's question of the week is a simple one. What's your favourite childhood memory? Now, would you class yourself at 14 as still a child?
I have the memory of a goldfish.
I didn't ask about your memory, I asked about whether you consider yourself a child or not.
I don't know.
Would you consider yourself a child, half adult, or goldfish?
Giant man, baby.
Giant man, baby. yourself a giant man baby. I didn't have that on the list. I gave you an obscure one by saying
No, I
golden
was
fish.
describing you.
Oh my God, I've just been burnt. Number one, described as a giant man baby, and number two, burned semi-live on the podcast. I can't believe it. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Instead, I'm going to tell you about my childhood memory. It was when I was dressed up as a giant man baby. No, it was. I think one of my favourite childhood memories was my granddad used to take us for trips into London. And he used to do this thing where he take us to museums. And I went to the National Gallery when I was 7. Granddad took me. And I wasn't too impressed by the art, but they had some revolving doors. I remember going round the revolving doors about 12 times and loving those revolving doors. And then the Imperial War Museum, they had a live trench. I love that. So my memories involve revolving doors and trenches. What's your favourite?
Well, I will give you two. I will give you two phrases: wallpaper and ice cream, and I'll explain the first one. I'll explain the second one actually. There was a time, and we went out into London, and I don't even remember much about that day. We were walking along the riverbank, and you bought me ice cream, and I was sitting on your shoulders eating it, and I got this giant brain freeze. And I don't know what it is about that. I just always remember that.
Okay.
Just getting this, and then the other one.
Childhood memory, the day you got brain freeze.
But I had such fun because it was the first time I ever got brain freeze. And it just whole new experience.
Favourite childhood memory, the day I got brain freeze, the day. What's the wallpaper?
Oh, the wallpaper one. Okay, so you remember when you repapered my walls, the pink fairies stuff?
Right.
And you moved my bunk bed about and everything, and I had to get up for that. So I got up and I went back to sleep, but I woke up halfway through it and I could just hear your paper on the walls. So I don't know why, it just makes me so happy remembering that.
So my childhood memories are about revolving doors and bunkers. Yours is about brain freeze, wallpaper, and there's a giant man baby. So,
No, I only said that because there was a TV show when I was like 10 about these two guys, and they photoshopped their heads onto giant baby heads, and they just made jokes at each other.
Maybe that's our new podcast profile picture. I don't know. Just me and as a giant man baby. And on that note, listeners, we want to hear your favourite childhood memory. Hopefully, it's something more direct than wallpaper, brain freeze, bunkers.
Revolving doors.
Revolving doors. So please do let us know what your childhood memories are, and let's move on to Kindness News.
Welcome to Chris James edition, Kindness News.
Where do you get that from? That voice is like Brian Blessed on steroids.
Oh,
Welcome
Brian.
to Chris James edition.
Where does Brian Blessed get his steroids? Can I get some?
Please note that I'm not implying that Brian Blessed is on steroids, just that Charlotte sounds like Brian Blessed on steroids.
How do you know what Brian Blessed sounds like on steroids if he's never been on steroids?
True, tell me. So anyway, this episode of Kindness News is another edition by me, and this edition of Kindness News is Kindness News Brain Science Edition. How about that, Charlotte?
Ooh,
Neuroscience?
Neuroscience.
Yeah.
Neurology, there we go.
And this is from a website called Basel.com, and it says, how kindness changes your brain according to new research.
Neuroscientists.
Being kind and helping others is a great way to boost your mood. However, the mechanisms of it have remained a bit obscure. However, a new overview of brain studies published in Neuromage.
I think it's Neuromag.
No, Neuromage has found for the first time what kindness looks like in the brain, and it's more complicated than we anticipated. The scientists behind the study found that there are two distinct types of kindness, and they show up in the brain in different ways. It has a lot of intriguing implications for how we understand the warm glow of being nice to somebody else. The scientists looked at 36 different studies of kindness in which 1,150 separate participants had their brains scanned as they did something generous. Thoughts about altruism or some other action that triggered the kindness centres of the brain.
Yup.
And the researchers divided the studies into types of kindness on display. First one is strategic kindness, where you perform an act of generosity for somebody with the hope that you'll get something back in return. Think, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. Type 2 is altruistic, where you do good with no reward in sight, just for the feel-good factor. It turns out the feel-good factor in the brain is a real thing. Altruistic and strategic kindness, according to brain scans, activate different segments of the brain. When you're being strategic, the striatal regions of the brain, which give feelings of reward, light up, and you get a rush of positive feelings. But when you're generous without wanting anything in return, the brain also gives you feelings of reward from some other areas. Altruism, the scientists found, lights up a whole spectrum of the brain. It uses the striatal areas too, but it also activates the subgenual anterior cingulate cortex. I said that, and I'm not sure whether we're going to get brain scientists right to the Kindness Project and go, I've been a brain scientist for 20 years and I don't know what that is because you mispronounced it so badly. Which is involved in our mood, making us happy. Another area that shows a lot of activity when we're being generous, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex.
Oh, I know what that is. Don't worry about it. You pronounced that right.
Ventromedial prefrontal.
Don't know what it does, but I've heard of it, yeah.
Which affects our decision making and is a crucial part of making empathetic decisions that bond us to others. When you adopt a kitten or donate to charity, that's your ventromedial prefrontal cortex talking. So, there's loads of really good research into kindness now, isn't there?
Oh, yup.
The scientists behind the study point out in the press release that two types of kindness do overlap in the brain, so it's important to be careful and not confuse your motivations or those of others. If after a long day helping a friend move house, they hand you money, you can end up feeling undervalued and less likely to help again. A hug and kind words, however, might spark a warm glow and make you feel appreciated. So that is pretty awesome stuff, and scientific proof that kindness is good for us. I know we talk about this guy quite a lot, but interestingly, it's what David Hamilton talks about in his book, The 5-Sided Effect.
I had to know that was coming.
Which I love, by the way. It's a great
I know that was
book.
coming.
But knowing that kindness is good for the brain means that I'm going to try and do a bit more.
Yup.
So this week, Charlotte, I want to conclude my interview with Chris Haycock from Kitbag. Chris is an incredibly awesome fella. Love the work he does with the charity. He's an interesting guy. Great life story. I want to share a bit more about his life in the second part of the interview. Listeners, if you haven't heard the first part of the interview yet,
It's in the previous episode.
it's in the last episode, so feel free to take a look at that before you listen to this. But should we get on with the second half of Chris's interview?
Oh, yup.
We were talking about kids earlier on, and certainly my perspective on kindness has changed since the girls were born, gradually. So I know you mentioned meeting Mo. Did you get to a point where you went, actually, I don't need to be this way, I can be this way? Was it instant? Because for me, this journey of being a bit more kind is taking a bit longer.
That's a really good question. It felt instant, but I think that it gradually happened over the course of maybe a month or so.
Okay.
The realization that I could actually be the person that I was inside.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a lot of struggles from my childhood, which I'm also having therapy with a counsellor.
Okay.
And I think just talking about those issues has also sort of run hand in hand with the whole thing as well, in that I've been encouraged just to be myself.
Yeah.
And if kindness is part of myself, then it manifests itself quite quickly when you're allowed to take that mask off. And it's only you yourself that's allowed to take that mask off.
Yeah.
Now, everyone pretty much does have some kind of mask, of some form. But I think if you're able to take your mask off and just be really comfortable in your own skin and not be worried about what other people think, then I don't care whether people call me too nice or too kind. It's my mission, it's my goal. But yeah, so I think it happened quite quickly.
Okay, cool. I'm sure I'll get there eventually, Chris. But so help me understand. I know Kit Bag is about helping homeless people. Why is homelessness such an issue close to your heart?
Okay, so when I left the Navy back in 1992, I really wasn't prepared for civilian life.
Okay.
And although I tried really hard to get back into society, I ended up homeless on many occasions in London, and again in Torquay a few years later. And it all started off really sofa surfing at friends and colleagues' houses. But that obviously you can't put on other people, and it never lasted long. London's a fun place at night if you've got a home. But when you don't have a bed, it's absolutely horrific. Some nights I'd find myself in a doorway. Other nights I'd walk the street and then sleep on the tube during the day. And I just really remember the feelings of absolute dread and despair and pretty much hopelessness that came from not knowing where I was going to be sleeping that night. And luckily, I managed to get myself out of homelessness. And it's a chapter of my life that's always haunted me, at least until I started Kit Bag. So, starting Kit Bag has really enabled me to kind of revisit my thoughts that were going through my head and issues that I've had. And it feels right that I'm giving back something into helping others overcome homelessness.
Do you think it's really interesting because we've done quite a few of these interviews now, and one of the recurring themes is that just having some adversity in our life, that we want to make sure that we're in a position where we, sort of counteract that negativity by doing something really positive. Do you feel that way?
I do. It's funny because I think about this quite a lot, and I look back and obviously I can't go into everything that I've gone through in my life because honestly I would be here all night.
Chris, look, we could turn it into a counselling session if you want to. It's been a real journey, and I like to call it a journey. I don't like to see it as adversity. There's been an enormous amount of adversity in my life, but I look back with, and this sounds quite strange, I look back with a lot of fondness to all the hardship that I had because it's turned me into the person that I am today, and every part of my journey from early childhood right the way to where I am now is a series of chapters. Every chapter has been different, but every chapter, looking back, was fundamental to your development, right?
Whole outlook on life today. So adversity, it's fine, bring it on. We can all do with a bit of adversity from time to time for a bit of realism.
Certainly it's interesting because it builds that resilience, right? You get into a position where it allows you to cope with different stuff. But I think, as you've said, the challenge is making sure you cope but keeping an open heart and keeping a positive attitude and making sure that you never take it, and you're not too stern with it. You take it well. So, well, it'd be interesting to understand your perspective on homelessness. Do you think sort of councils, local authorities, and other sort of state-run organisations do enough?
Again, it's a tricky question. There's obviously so many different organisations and groups going on in the UK, but the good thing is that there's been a lot of publicity surrounding homelessness over the last couple of years, and that's really good. Organisations are starting to work together, even though it's still all a bit disjointed. Yeah. But the biggest part, at least for myself anyway, is society itself. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, when I used to think of a tramp, it put all sorts of negative images in our minds. And I do feel that the whole perception of homelessness is gradually changing, and more than ever, I see society as a whole starting to take action for themselves. Yeah. We used to think, I wish someone would help this person, kind of like expecting someone else to do it. But I think more people now are realising that someone
is you.
Anyone can help, and everyone can help. Yeah. And in addition, going back to organisations and authorities and councils, the good thing is that there's new legislation coming into force from next month. Okay. And it's called the Homelessness Reduction Act. Yeah. They're pumping 61 million into the issue of homelessness. And what it's set out to do is to place, as well as pumping in a lot of money, is placing a legal duty on councils to support the homeless. And I really do believe that this is a very, very positive initiative. Yeah, great. Perhaps, very long overdue, but the only thing is that I would advise anyone to ignore any fake news that tell you that this new act will introduce a law to make it illegal to beg. It's doing the rounds at the moment. Okay. The fact is, it's been illegal to beg since the 1830s. Okay. So nothing's changed. Many homeless organisations are calling this a game changer. So, I think that as a whole, the country is beginning to kick itself off the backside and actually do something about it.
It's interesting because Cassie used to work for, my wife used to work for Tower Hamlets Local Authority. Oh, yeah. We talk about, since doing the Kindness Project, we talk about some of these issues a lot because we interview people and talk to people and think about this a lot more. And one of the things she says is, you'd never believe how many empty premises local authorities heat and light but are just completely vacant that potentially could be used to help solve that homeless problem. And that seems that we need a bit more sort of, sounds a bit cliche, but we need a bit of joined up thinking. If there's space there and you've got homeless people on the streets next door, you should be using that space, right? It makes sense to do so. So the fact that councils are compelled to do something there, it'd be interesting to see whether we see any change.
It's a good thing. It can only be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a bit of a fan of the sort of the Finland. Let me just precursor this. Most things about Scandinavia I like. Right? I like meatballs. I quite like IKEA. I like liberalism. I like all that sort of stuff. So maybe it's my what would you call it? Scandophilia? I don't know. Have I just made that word up? I'm not sure whether I have or not. I'm taking it though. Scandophilia is now my new word. But Finland do a really good job in terms of saying, if we house people first, then that gives them a bit of a start to
solve their own problems, give them dignity, give them a roof over their head, and they've found there's been an economic benefit to doing that. What do you think of that model?
I'm afraid, Chris, I'm a little bit more sceptical.
Okay, fine.
And I'll attempt anyway to explain why. So the idea is this: in Finland, when you become homeless, the state gives you permanent housing straight away, pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
And over there, it does seem to have worked.
Yeah.
They've pretty much eradicated rough sleeping. It's brilliant. You know, kudos to them. And I do believe that we're going to be, in this country, trialling the same scheme in Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham.
We are,
And it sounds like a wonderful idea. You know, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. So why am I so sceptical? Well, firstly, there's an issue with building. Who's going to build these new homes?
Gotcha.
We're in the middle of quite an immense austerity program.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're still trying to reduce the deficit. Who's going to be building? Which house builders are going to be building them? I can't see any private developers picking up the gauntlets to this one because there won't be much profit.
Money.
Which house? Some of the initial housing first pilot schemes have collapsed just simply because the money ran out. Secondly, healthcare, social care, homeless services and housing organisations, they're all over the place. Finland had a really good integrated strategy that did rely on a joined-up approach, which unfortunately we can't compete with.
Gotcha.
They're all these organisations, they're all struggling to work themselves. Each other, you know? And thirdly, there's a question, and perhaps this one is a bit controversial. There's a question of property and rent prices in the UK. Many people are already struggling to house themselves affordably and find themselves on the breadline. Would they, and here's the thing, would they consider declaring themselves homeless in order to get slightly better accommodation?
Right.
Could the floodgates open to abuse of this system? I'm a bit of a skeptic.
Right. So I was with you on points 1 and 2. I think you need to find your happy place with point 3, Chris, because I genuinely, again, this is me with my rose-tinted glasses, right? I don't think people actively choose to do that, but we'll see when the trials come out, right? You know, it'd be interesting to see.
At Grenfell, Grenfell Tower. Grenfell Tower, why has the name escaped me? And you read stories of people that claim to have lived there, and it's just...
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that in this country, people are our own worst enemy.
Yeah, gotcha.
There's a very, very, very small minority that abuse the system to a degree that you think to yourself, well, is it worth doing this? And I know, of course, it is worth doing it, but I don't know. I'm slightly cynical.
Yeah.
But I hope that it does work. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be. I mean, the true test will be in the trials, right? If the trials, you know, so. But I think you're right in some of the challenges. Certainly, the scale of the challenge in Finland is different to the UK. But certainly we've got to try to do something to help people. So what's the next thing for Kitbag? What's next for the charity, in your opinion?
Well, we've just had a busy Christmas, obviously, for the second year running. I was pretty manic, with lots and lots of amazing people donating kit bags to the homeless. Obviously, with the beast from the east hitting, it's been quite difficult to to stock up with some items, to be honest. You know, sleeping bags have been a nightmare to get hold of because everyone's just snapping them up.
Gotcha.
But we're getting there. We've got a batch of 50 kit bags that are due to be made up over the next week, and we'll be distributing them to rough sleepers and homeless organisations shortly. We're also looking to reduce the cost of each kit bag this year by asking for donations from businesses such as dentists, supermarkets, doctors, that sort of thing, to supply us
With the
items.
stuff to put in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we really need to be doing this, such as, you know, toothpaste, toiletries, first aid items.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are many businesses out there that manufacture them or stock
Agreed.
them. Quite happy to give us a couple of hundred or whatever.
Yeah.
And that will bring down the cost per kit bag, and then obviously we'll be able to give out more for less.
Yeah.
Also, although we're not a registered charity as yet, because our annual donations are less than the minimum required to be forced to register, we're looking at registering this year to make it
Official. Yeah.
and hopefully give us the best year ever. So it's hopefully going to be a great year for us.
Cool, awesome stuff. And where can people find you, and what can they do to help?
So, in terms of the kit bag project, you can find out more about what we do and hopefully donate at our website at www.kitbag.com. And as for me, you can get in contact with me if you need any advice about homelessness or kindness or anything. I'm always open to talk to anyone. You can visit my company website at www.click2.com. Now the spelling's a little bit different to this, so I'll just read it out. That's BLIQTO.com. Yeah. Or you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/chris.at.click2 using that same spelling.
Cool, awesome. And we'll put loads of links on the show notes, Chris, and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed our chat. And actually, I enjoyed the fact that we didn't agree on everything, right? And potentially, I've invented a new word. I mean, I don't know, I might have done.
What was it?
Scandophilia. Now, I've got a feeling it exists.
It's going to end up in the Oxford English.
So, one thing we didn't do as well, and we'll have to get you back on for next time to do it. Normally, we ask podcast guests the question of the podcast. So we've got a bunch of questions of the podcast that we normally ask you, but we'll get you on for an update on Kitbag later, and we'll do it again. Cheers, Chris.
No problem at all.
Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that. That was really good. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. As I said earlier, I enjoy doing things like this. I think in advance, nerves get better on me.
Yeah.
When I get into it,
yeah.
I kind of, you start relaxing.
Yeah.
And, it's fine.
So that was the last part of Chris's interview. What do you think?
Gouda.
Gouda?
Gouda.
Gouda. It was Gouda.
Tis the end of another podcast. Is that loud?
You stole my job.
Was that loud?
Stole my job.
Yes, I did. Could you keep on going like the doomsayer? Tis the end. And I thought
with the tis the end of another podcast.
Well, nothing wrong with the way you go, tis the end. But I wanted to do it a little bit lighter and a bit livelier. Tis the end of another podcast. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, is there?
Enjoy your happy-go-lucky musical.
Okay, thank you. And last week, on last week's end of the podcast, we came out with some genius hashtags, particularly because we were talking about cow-related injuries.
Or animal-related.
Animal-related injuries, and a lot of people seem to suffer from cow-related injuries. The hashtag others in the face came up.
Start circulating.
Yeah, we're going to start using that hashtag others in the face. And I don't think we're going to get as many good hashtags from this week's last week's question of the podcast, but certainly we can give it a go. And last week's question of the podcast was, ideally, would you live in the country, the city, or the coast, and why? And Gillian Bird said, I love living by the coast because I love living by the sea. Padraig Floyd said, in the country, by the coast, with good transport links to the city. Jane Hodges, no good hashtags coming so far, Charlotte, is there? Jane Hodges said, at the coast, but preferably in a country where the sun shines. Hashtag, not in England. Hashtag, the sun ain't shining here. I've had enough of country with my farm in Yorkshire. It was hard work and very cold and windy.
Hashtag England.
Hashtag, Lambo! Mikey Fitzgerald, our mate. Guest host of the podcast a few weeks ago. We love a bit of Mikey, don't we? And we're still waiting to find out. Has he sent you? He wants us to do a charity gaming tournament, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Did he let you know about that?
Yes, he did.
When's it going off?
A date for it.
All right, okay. So hashtag Lambo. We are on for your gaming tournament, so please do let us know when you fancy it, when you're up for that. And he just said, London is the best place in the world, and we're blessed with such diversity.
London.
Hashtag London. Hashtag Sheila goes out with her mate Stella. Gets poured all over a fella. Roberta, that's quite a long hashtag, isn't it? Roberta White said, I love living by the coast and I love living by the east coast of Scotland. Now, I agree.
Hashtag East Coast of Scotland.
Hashtag East Coast. No. Hashtag too cold for me. I mean, we're going up to our Broth Christmas this year, and it is pretty nippy up there. Hashtag pretty nippy. Hashtag no worse than others in the face. Nick Lancaster said, I've lived in the city and in the country. While in the city, you have everything to hand, but I love living in the Welsh Hills. Beautiful even in bad weather, and despite offers, nothing has tempted me away from the Welsh Hills.
Hashtag beautifully bad weather.
Ooh, hashtag beautifully bad weather. Hashtag Welsh Hills in the face. So that is what people told us about where they'd live in an ideal world. And on that note, it's truly the end.
Toodle pip.
Toodle pip, and we'll see you next week.
Cheerio.
Au revoir. Arrivederci.
C'est la vie.
Goodbye.